Podcast. My name is Gavin. Today I'm going to give my first rankings for the 24-25 college golf season that has begun already. I'm going to begin with the women's golf season, with the women's golf rankings, and then I'll get into the men's rankings in the next video. Brentley Romine and Golf Week have given their rankings for the top teams and top players for the 24-25 season, and I'm going to give my rankings, see where I stack up against Brentley in Golf Week, and where I differ and where I agree. We've already had a couple tournaments started. We've had the conference realignment, which I don't think really is gonna affect college golf too much. I think that only the teams that are mostly going to play where they play, keep the tournaments that they normally play in. And I don't think, other than one tournament, the conference championship, around that April time, that it's really going to differ. You have like Stanford in the ACC, you have other teams, Arizona State's now in the Big 12, USC's in the Big 10, UCLA, things like that. The conference realignment for other sports may be different, but I think for college golf, other than the one tournament, I don't think it's really gonna affect too much, other than once we see in April, if we see Stanford as ACC champions, that's gonna be a little odd to see. But I think that at least for college golf perspective, these conference realignment, it's not really gonna affect things too much. So let's get into my team rankings. Obviously, number one, we have Stanford. I agree. Brentley has Stanford at number one. Golf Week number one. I mean, Stanford is obviously the consensus number one. They were last year's national champions. They do lose Rachel Heck, Brooke Say, and Sadie Engelman, but I mean those are big shoes to fill. Those are big losses for Stanford and last year's national champions. But I think they get even stronger. They do lose Rachel Heck and Sadie Engelman, who's now a professional, but they gained ninth ranked amateur Andrea Revuelta. Revuelta is ninth ranked amateur. She recently finished runner-up at the European Ladies Amateur. So I think that Stanford has one of the best recruiting classes that we've ever seen in history. The ninth ranked amateur, that's one of the best amateurs we've ever seen arrived at Stanford. We saw Alba Valenzuela. She was the 11th ranked amateur when she arrived at Stanford nearly a decade ago, and now we get Andrea Revuelta from Spain, the ninth ranked amateur. She is now coming to Stanford. She recently finished runner-up at the European Ladies Amateur. Stanford also gets Meja Ortengren from Sweden. She finished third at the European Ladies and made the round of 16 in the Women's Amateur. Stanford's also adding Nora Sundberg from Sweden, and one of the top incoming freshmen from the U.S., Leah Chen. Stanford's so stacked that Chen might not even get to play this year. They have a stacked team, I think, of Paula Martin Sampedro, sophomore from Spain. They have Kelly Zhu, Meja Gane, Andrea Revuelta, and Ortengren. I mean, lineup possibly of Martin Sampedro, Kelly Zhu, who played very well at the U.S. Women's Amateur this year. Meja Gane, she kind of struggled this year. And we didn't see too much of Meja. Meja might not even get to play in the top five, because the lineup for Stanford is so strong and so deep. Having Martin Sampedro, Kelly Zhu, Meja Gane, you could even throw in Caroline Sturza, adding in Revuelta, Ortengren, Sundberg from Sweden. The projected starting lineup for them is Sampedro, Revuelta, Ortengren, Kelly Zhu, and Meja Gane. So I think that Stanford, they lost Rachel Heck, they lost Sadie Engelman, they lost Brooke Say, but they reloaded in a big way, with one of the best recruiting classes in college golf history, adding Revuelta, adding Ortengren, adding Nora Sundberg, adding Leah Chen. So I think that Stanford's the defending champions. We saw they lost Rose Zhang to professional golf, and then what do? They come back in last year. They won the national championship last season. And, I think that Stanford's the best team. They are, even 6-7 deep. There'll be some players who won't get to play as much, who ordinarily might get to play, because they have, 6 or 7, players who are capable of starting at each tournament. And, I think that Stanford, yes, they lost 3 players, but, they had one of the best recruiting classes we've ever seen. And, they, regrouped and reloaded in the best way possible. So I think that Stanford is definitely the consensus number one, and they're the defending national champions, and I think it's going to be hard to beat them this upcoming season. For number two, for me, I have UCLA. Brentley has Texas. I just don't, necessarily have Texas. I think, with, adding Laura Ionello, which we'll get into, I think that, getting a new coach and, just adding, the change that's going to happen, getting a new coach, getting a new leader in. I don't necessarily have them at two. I got to see, how they play and how things go before I'm able to, say, oh, Texas is, the best team other than Stanford. Golf Week has USC. Again, we'll get into USC. I think USC has a loaded, top three with Jasmine Koo, Catherine Park, and Bailey Shoemaker. But, they only have 6 players. And, the question to me answer is, you only have 6 players. Who's going to step up? There's no room for error when you have 6 players. And who's going to step up outside of the top three of Jasmine Koo, Catherine Park, and Bailey Shoemaker? So for me, I have, at number two, I have UCLA, the team who finished runner-up to Stanford at the national championship last season. UCLA is led by senior Zoe Campos, who I think is definitely a top 5, one of the best players in, college women's golf. Zoe Campos was just recently named to the Annika Award watch list. Last year, as I said, they were a shocker, but I don't really think necessarily they are this year. They're known to be one of the best teams coming into the season. They made it to the championship match of the national championship. They were returning all of their starting 5 from the national championship finalists last year, except for Kate Villegas. Zoe Campos, who's their leader this year, who I think is definitely going to be one of the top 5 college golfers this year. At least I have her, which we'll get into my player rankings next. But I have her as one of the top, college golfers for women's college golf this year. She made it to match play at the USAM. She played on the, Curtis Cup team for the US. And, I also really like how, UCLA, they made it to the finals, and they're adding Francesca Fiorellini from Italy. Fiorellini, she's the 19th ranked amateur. She finished 3rd at the Ladies Italian Open on the Ladies European Tour, and she won the Italian Ladies match play. So I really think that UCLA, they were the finalists, and they even get even stronger. They added, Fiorellini. She hasn't played much. One of the things that, is a knock about her is she hasn't played much in the US. And, she didn't play in the US Women's Am, which is one of the, biggest amateur tournaments for, women's amateur golf. The US Am, it's where most of the best players play. So she really hasn't played much in the US. And so I think the question for her is going to see, how can she make that transition, growing up in Italy to now playing, at UCLA, in college golf in the US, because we haven't really seen her play much. We've seen her play, and finish, at these top, amateur and professional tournaments. She won the ladies, the Italian ladies match play, and she finished 3rd at the ladies Italian Open on the ladies European Tour. So she has top finishes, in Europe, but really making that transition to the US is, going to be the next step. And, what I'm interested to see with Fiorellini from Italy. Also, another question mark for UCLA is Caroline Canales. She advanced through pre-qualifying of LPGA Q Series. It'll be interesting to see if Caroline, will defer any status. The indications, seem to say that Caroline will defer any status she earns, at Q Series for LPGA. But it'll be interesting to see, if she ultimately ends up, turning professional, or if she, ends up, deferring any status that she earns at Q Series and, just decides to remain at UCLA. But, I really like UCLA. I have them as the number 2 team in the country behind Stanford. I really like their potential, starting lineup of Zoe Campos, Fiorellini, Caroline Canales, Megan Royal, and Woad. They, were the runner-ups last year. And I just really like them. I think, other people have USC and Texas as number 2, but I really like UCLA. They have, their leader in Zoe Campos. They add in, great freshmen. And I think that there's too many question marks with the other teams that I have. At number 3, I have Texas. Texas hired new coach in Laura Ionello from Arizona this offseason. They have a very good lineup, led by Farah O'Keefe. O'Keefe won the Women's Western Amateur this summer and made it to the round of 16 in the USAM. and she likely should have been a pick for the Curtis Cup team for the U.S. But I really see, great things for O'Keefe. I have her as one of the top 10 women's college golfers going into the season. I think that she's really going to lead Texas. Texas has a very good team. They also have sophomore Lauren Kim from Canada. She won a pro tournament in Canada this summer. She made it to the round of 16 in the USM. Texas also has junior Cindy Sue, who won, the points race. She won the Women's Elite Amateur Series. So O'Keefe, Kim, and Sue, they're going to be a strong top three for Texas. But my question for them is, adding in a new coach, Laura Ianello, which I didn't hugely love the hiring. She's a great coach, national championship coach. She won at Arizona, but, I necessarily wasn't, super enthusiastic about, her press conference, adding her in from Texas, things that are going on with Texas, with, John Fields and, him pushing to get the national championship, at Omni La Costa, permanently and things like that, I think there's too many question marks. We'll have to see how Texas does under, Laura Ianello, and also, who's gonna step up, outside of the top three of O'Keefe, Lauren Kim and Cindy Sue. They have a very strong top three, but who's going to be their 4 and 5? They also lose, a very incredible player in, Bentley Cotton. So there's a lot of question marks I have for Texas. Definitely think they're the third best team, but I have to see them, play, see how they're going to do under Laura. See how, who's going to step up, be their 4 and 5 players, and, how they're going to rebound, losing someone like Bentley Cotton, who's one of the, best players in women's college golf. At number 4, I have USC. USC last year made it to the semifinals of the national championship in match play, but they fell to Stanford. They'll be losing a lot of talent. I think that USC, has a very strong team this year, but with their top three, a lot of their question marks are going to be outside of their top three. They're going to have, they're adding in Jasmine Koo, who is the 6th ranked amateur. Jasmine Koo played on, the Curtis Cup team. She was a semifinalist at the U.S. Girls Junior, and she tied for 13th at the Chevron Championship, major championship on the LPGA. So, Jasmine Koo is one of the best players, in amateur golf. Adding her in will be a huge boost for USC, but they're losing a lot of talent. They're going to be losing Amari Avery, who turned professional after last season. They'll also be losing Brianna Navarrosa. They'll be losing Christine Wang. So they will retain, 3 from last year's team, their top 5, but they'll also lose 2 players, Amari Avery and Brianna Navarrosa. So, they're going to get a huge boost from Jasmine Koo. As we mentioned, they're also highlighted, they have 7th ranked amateur Catherine Park, and they have Bailey Shoemaker, who finished runner-up at the Augusta National Women's Amateur last year. So their top 3 is very strong, but with, Jasmine Koo and Catherine Park and Bailey Shoemaker. But the question for me remains, they only have 6 players on their roster. So basically all their players are going to be required to step up at every tournament. I mean, you have to have 5 players at a tournament, and they only have 6 on their roster. So there's going to be no room for error with USC. And, who's going to be, who's going to step up and who's going to be, players 4 and 5 for USC, because, they have a very strong top 3 with Catherine Park and Bailey Shoemaker and Jasmine Koo, but who's going to be, players 4 and 5 for USC. So, I really like USC, their top 3, but I think that, players 4 and 5, are, roles that, I have to see get filled for them, and only having 6 players on the roster is going to, lead a lot of question marks. But, Justin Silverstein, what he's doing at USC, what they did last year being semifinalists, losing to Stanford, I think that, I see a lot of great things for them. And I think Jasmine Koo definitely, has the potential to be, freshman of the year in women's college golf. At number 5, I have Arkansas. I just think that, like Brantley Romine, he has Arkansas at number 7. I just see, too much. I like Arkansas this year. We had Jose Marin, and Kendall Todd. They were semifinals at the U.S. Amateur this past summer. Marin won the Colombian Open this summer. She finished 2nd individually recently at the Carmel Cup. It might have been that Brantley did this before the upcoming college season, because Marin did have to, withdraw or forfeit her match due to left knee injury in the U.S. Amateur at the semifinals. But For me, I really like Arkansas. They finished second at the Carmel Cup at Pebble Beach. And Marin played very well. She, shot a final round of 500. She won the Colombian Open this past summer. And also really like Kendall Todd. She had a very good summer. She won the Women's Porter Cup. She finished tied for fourth herself at the Carmel Cup, their opening college tournament. So Arkansas finished second as a team at the Carmel Cup, 2 strokes behind a surprising team in Vanderbilt who got the victory. I had Arkansas getting the victory at the Carmel Cup, but Vanderbilt, the surprise team, got the victory. But for me, it's really, they have a very strong top, 2 players in Kendall Todd and Maria Jose Marin, who I think is one of the top college golfers in women's college golf. She's the 10th ranked amateur from Columbia. But for me, it's really going to be who's going to step up, outside of Marin and Todd, because they have 2 of the top, college golfers in the nation. But really, who's going to be, players 3 through 5 for them? Anna Kate Nichols was their next best player at the Carmel Cup, at 12th place at 6 over. And Clarissa Tamello, who's going to be, who the Razorbacks are really going to rely on. She kind of struggled at the Carmel Cup. She finished 26th place. She shot 9 over par in the final round. So really, for me, I would have Arkansas higher, but I just think there's too many question marks outside of Maria Jose Marin and Kendall Todd. Tamello struggled at the Carmel Cup. Anna Kate Nichols was their next best player, and they only finished second there. So I think that there's a lot of question marks, but really if they can secure up positions 3 through 5, then I think they can really make it to match play this year and have a strong team. At number 6, I have South Carolina. I think for me, I think Brentley has them at South Carolina at 5th. I think they have the potential South Carolina to be one of the top teams in the nation. But they really are going to be a team that's going to have to, prove themselves this year. They're led by seniors Hannah Darling and Louise Rydqvist. They have a very, strong international team with Miley's Lamore, Virana Heck. So, the potential starting lineup, they are led by Rydqvist and Hannah Darling, Miley's Lamore, and, Virana Heck. So they have a lot of international talent on their team, but they're really going to need to prove themselves. And Louise Rydqvist and Hannah Darling are going to be 2 players that are really going to have to step up for South Carolina this year. Last spring, Hannah Darling had multiple top 10 finishes, and she was co-medalist at the Darius Rucker Intercollegiate. So, you've seen the highs and lows with Hannah Darling. She had a really great spring, and then at the national championship, she was subbed out, after shooting 684, and she took a lot of time off from golf this summer. She mostly just played match play tournaments, but you could really see, being from Scotland, playing at Sunningdale, winning the Curtis Cup, you could really see, how much that meant to her, how fired up she was, winning the Curtis Cup, and just, I think that'll propel her to have a great, college season, because I could just really see, for Hannah, how fired up that was. She didn't play good at the national championship. She had, a pretty good spring. She had multiple top 10. She was gold medalist at the Darius Rucker, but, I really just think that for Hannah, she's going to be someone who, she's had a lot of potential. She had a lot of noise coming in for herself. She knows that she can be one of the top college golfers, contend for, national championship. And, I think that last year was definitely a disappointment for them, but I think number 6 for South Carolina, Louise Rydqvist is also a player who's really stepped up, improving herself. She had a really good summer herself. She was a semifinalist at the Women's Amateur, and she won the European Ladies Amateur. But for me, for South Carolina, I think they have the potential to, be the top 8 and make it to match play this year. Like I said, they have, 2 senior leaders, and they have, lots of international talent, and they aren't losing anyone. They have a great starting lineup. They're adding in a freshman in Tiffany Sy. Kaylin Anderson, the coach there, has a very good team. But for me, I'm going to need to see other players like Miley Lamore and Virana Heck step up. If Hannah Darling and Louise Rydqvist are aren't playing well, because the team, for them it just spiraled downhill. Hannah Darling wasn't playing well. Louise Rydqvist didn't make it to past the cut for individually, and their team, it just felt like just spiraled down. They had a tough time, at the Auburn regional, just making it through to the national championship. They tied for 4th there, and then finished 23rd at the national championship last year. So for them, I really think, players like Miley Lamar and, Farah Heck and others, on their starting lineup are going to have to, step up, when players like, Louise Rydqvist or Hannah Darling, aren't playing, you know, like we know they're capable of playing. But, I think they're a team who's, very good, not losing anyone this upcoming season. I think they have the potential to make it, to match play and be one of the top 8 this year. At number 7, I have Auburn. Brentley has them at number 6. I just think that for me, the question is going to be, how far can Anna Davis, take Auburn this year? They're losing, a lot of leadership, a lot of talent in Megan Schofield and Anna Foster. So for me, it's going to be, they're going to rely a lot on Anna Davis. They also have Casey Weidenfeld and Katie Cranston, juniors, who are returning on their lineup. And so for me, their top 3 is very good. But for me, it's going to be, how far can Anna Davis, take them? Because we've seen, the highs and lows. We've seen Anna Davis, play really well, win the Augusta National Women's Amateur. We've seen her play. She played on the Curtis Cup team this past summer, and she won the Auburn Regional at their home tournament. And so I think she's gained some experience, but they're going to rely a lot on Anna Davis. Just in her first full college golf season, they have a very good top 3 in Anna Davis, Weidenfeld, and Katie Cranston. But the issues are going to be that they have a very young team. They have no seniors this year. Who's going to step up and who's going to be, the number 4 and number 5. Davolos and, Werby are, Karis Werby and, Balma Davolos are, projected to be their, 4 and 5. They're adding in freshmen. They're adding 2 freshmen. They get a they lost Morgan Jones. She transferred to Illinois State. So, last year I was very high on Auburn. I felt like it was their time. They had Megan Schofield. They had Anna Foster. They had Casey Weidenfeld. They had Katie Cranston and Anna Davis. But ultimately, I think that I think they would have made it further through in match play last year, but they they lost in the quarterfinals. They finished 8th. They lost to Stanford. So for me, Auburn has a very good top 3, but they have a lot to answer. Losing their leadership in Megan Schofield and Anna Foster, and just how much can Anna Davis, how far can Anna Davis take them? I think they can make the top 8 and make match play, but for me, it's going to really depend upon how far can Anna Davis take them? Who's going to be players 4 and 5 for them, and who's just going to step up outside of Anna Davis, Casey Weidenfeld, and Katie Cranston, and who's going to give them the leadership because they don't have any seniors on their team, and they have Anna Davis who's just starting her first full year of college golf. So for me, it's really going to be who can step up and who who's going to be the leader for them with no seniors on their lineup. But I think they're a team who can definitely has the potential to make match play this year. And I think last year they were, I think they could have been, a Final Four or even made the championship last year, but they ultimately just, in the quarterfinals got paired up against Stanford, and that was too much to answer for them. But, I see a lot for Anna Davis this year, and I think there's going to be a lot expected for her to lead the Auburn Tigers this year. At number 8, I have Northwestern. I really like Northwestern this year. I really like, the team that they're bringing in. Brentley has them at number 10. I think that, I think they're even better than number 10. I think they have the potential to make it, to match play this year. They have experience. They're bringing in talented freshmen this year. They're led by senior Lauren Goyen, who won the Washington Women's Amateur this summer, and she also made it to match play of the U.S. Amateur. They're also bringing in freshman Elise Lee and Megan Mang. Elise Lee finished runner-up at the Women's Western Amateur, and she finished 4th at the Girls Junior PGA. Megan Mang, who they're also bringing in as a freshman, was a junior Solheim Cup player and a 2-time AJGA All-American. So I look for Northwestern to have a very good team this year. They have experience with Lauren Gwynn and, newcomers with Megan Mang and Elise Lee. I really like the team that they have. This could be their best opportunity this year. They're bringing in, really great freshmen, and they have that, senior leadership in Lauren and Gwynn. So I think, Northwestern maybe as a team, not giving enough credit, but I think they're slowly, building a very good team there for Northwestern. I really like, see what they do. They host the Windy City Collegiate, and I see, a lot of potential for them, and I think they have a good chance to make it to match play at the national championship this year. At number 9, I have Mississippi State. Kind of an unexpected team, Mississippi State, for me to have in my top 10. Brentley has them at number 12. I'm seeing them around that, 10 to, 15 mark. But, I really like what Mississippi State did at the Carmel Cup. They finished third. They had a very good first round. They are led by Julia Lopez Ramirez, who is one of the best players in women's college golf. Ramirez finished third at the Carmel Cup individually. Last year, Mississippi State won the SEC championship. But they're going to need a lot more out of players like Avery Weed and Kiara Holder, to help Julia Lopez Ramirez, because, Lopez Ramirez is one of the best players. We've seen that. Even just saw it at the Carmel Cup. She finished third individually. But for Mississippi State, they had a very good first tournament, finished third behind Arkansas and Vanderbilt. But for them, it's going to be really who can step up outside of Julia Lopez Ramirez, because some of the players maybe didn't play amazing, like Avery Weed and Chiara Holder. So, they have the potential to be a very good team. I see them making it to national championship this year if they play to their potential. But really, it's going to be, who can step up and who can contribute to the team outside of Julia Lopez Ramirez, because Lopez Ramirez, probably will be at the top of the leaderboards this year for a lot of tournaments. But really, who's going to be, who's going to, go low and shoot good scores for them outside of Julia Lopez Ramirez. At number 10, I have Texas A&M. Brentley has them at 11. I think that for me, I have Texas A&M. I really like two of their players. They have Adela Cernousek and Cayetana Fernandez. They also have freshman Vanessa Borovilos. She didn't play amazing in her college debut at the Carmel Cup. I have Texas A&M at 10. I just wasn't, super impressed with how the Aggies played at the Carmel Cup. They finished fourth as a team behind Mississippi State, Arkansas, and Vanderbilt. I really like Adela Cernousek. She was, she's the reigning NCAA individual champion. She made the cut at the U.S. Women's Open, and she made the quarterfinals of the U.S. Amateur. So I see, a lot of potential, for another great season from Adela Cernousek. But, I wasn't super impressed with how, their team played at the Carmel Cup. So I'm going to need to see a lot more from Texas A&M. So I think 10 is a good position for them. I think they have the potential. They have a good, top 3 for them. But really, it's with a lot of teams, who's going to be their 4th and 5th, player outside of Cernousek and Cayetana Fernandez and Vanessa Borovilos. Some of them didn't play amazing, but I'm sure, they're going to, change it around. And I see them definitely, having a shot to be one of the top teams in college golf. For some of my other teams, at number 11, I have Arizona State. I'm a big, Arizona State fan. Brentley has them at number 9. I just think that number 9 is a little bit, too much for them. They only have 5 players on their roster. They lost Ashley Menny, who just won, pre-qualifying for LPGA, Q Series. They have Beth Coulter, Patience Rhodes, Grace Summerhates, Paula Schultz Hansen, and they're adding in Ilsa McDonald O'Brien. But for them, it's really going to be, they only have 5 players on their roster, so there's no room. There's no room to, be left for them. They're really gonna, everyone's gonna have to step up with 5 players. There's no room, for, to be left there. And, it's really going to depend upon Grace Summerhays. We saw, Beth Coulter and Patience Rhodes. They were on the winning, GB&I team for the Curtis Cup. So they're really great players, but it's really going to depend upon, Grace Summerhays. We've seen her, play really well, like at the Darius Rucker Intercollegiate, where she was up there, had the lead at times, and then we've seen her, not look so good, not be at the top of the, leaderboard. But, Patience Rhodes and Beth Coulter, are definitely going to be the 2 leaders for that team. And it's really going to depend upon, how well does Grace Summerhays play. And, we have to see how McDonald O'Brien does. Because they lost Ashley Menny and they lost Kellyanne Rosholt. She transferred to Grand Canyon University. So for me, they have a really good coach, legendary coach in Misty Farkay, who's won, national championships, as a coach at ASU. But it's really going to depend upon, how far can Grace Summerhays take how far can, Grace Summerhays take ASU? They only have 5 players, so, every player is gonna have to play well. You know, uh, every player is going to be dependent upon. They only have 5 players. I necessarily am not a huge fan. When you have 5 players, I would like, to add at least, 7 or 8 players to your roster. You just have to, be patient with it, ASU, because, they have a kind of a young team. They have Grace Summerhays, who's their, senior leader, but then they have Patience Rhodes, who's a sophomore, McDonald O'Brien, who's a freshman. So, you have 2 juniors, you have a senior, for ASU. Uh, but I think they're a team who they could play well, being under, Beth Coulter and Patience Rhodes with Grace Summerhays. If Grace Summerhays plays well, she has the potential, we've seen with Grace Summerhays, she could be at, top of the leaderboards. And also, Beth Coulter, she had a very good summer. She finished third at the Irish Women's Close Championship. She made it to match play at the British Women's Amateur. Schultz Hansen also got to the quarterfinals of the British Women's Amateur. So they only have 5 players, but they have a very good 5 players, and I think that all 5 players are going to be dependent upon. They're going to have to step up. So for me, it's ASU has 5 good players. I think there's plenty of space left on the Sun Devils roster, and I think that for me, there's a lot of talent on their lineup, but only having 5 players, each player is going to be relied upon. So I think number 11 for ASU, I think they're a team who's going to be around. Um, you know that kind of, are they going to make national championship? I think they can make national championship with the 5 players that they have, but I don't know if necessarily they have the potential right now to make it to be that top 8 and make it to match play. But we'll see how the season goes for them. At number 12, I have Oregon. Number 13, I have Vanderbilt. They were just a surprising team. They won the Carmel Cup. Angelina Tolentino played very well, shot 300 par at the Carmel Cup. I like Sarah M. So 13. Vanderbilt is a team who necessarily I might not have had at 13 coming into the season, but they played very well at the Carmel Cup. And so I like, how Vanderbilt, they got the upset win over Arkansas, who I had winning that tournament. And I think that, Vanderbilt, they proven themselves, getting that big time win at Pebble Beach. And, they impressed me very well, having Angelina Tolentino, finish 4th individually. And, if they keep it up, they can, be a team who can make it to national championship and have, a very solid team going into the season. Another notable at 14, I have Wake Forest. I just think that, Wake Forest has lost so much. They do have some good players. They have Macy Pate, they have Carolina Chikara, but they lost Rachel Keene. They lost Mimi Rhodes, and they lost Brooke Rivers. She turned professional. So, the problem is going to be, they have sizable holds. I have them at 14 just because, I like Kim Llewellyn. She's one of the, best coaches in college golf. But for me, the question is going to be really, who's going to step up. They have Macy Pate and Carolina Chikara, 2 great players, some of the top in, college golf. But who's really going to step up? They lost a lot of talent they lost a lot of talent, in Rachel Keene and, Mimi Rhodes, who was on the winning Curtis Cup team. So for me, Brentley has them at 15. I'm at 14. I just think that, there's too many questions to answer. They lost so much talent. They lost, one of the best players in amateur, in women's college golf, and Rachel Keene. And, it's going to be a lot of questions. They're going to have to, rely on a lot of, different players. And, only having, 2 amazing players in Macy Pate and Carolina Chikara. There's just a lot of, you know, questions to be answered from Wake Forest, and they just lost a lot of talent. So, that's why I have them at 14. At 15, I have Florida State, the top ranked amateur in the world, Lottie Woad. I have her as the best college golfer. She won the Augusta National Women's Amateur. She made the cut at the Chevron Championship. She was low amateur at the, the AIG Women's Open, and she was on the winning Great Britain and Ireland team for the Curtis Cup. They also added fellow junior Mirabelle Tang. She recovered after falling over the summer. They have one of the best, 1-2 punches in the nation with, Lottie Woad and Mirabel Tang. They also have an amazing coach, in Amy Bond. So Lottie Woad definitely, is going to really, be a great player and an important player for the Florida State Seminoles, and she's the best, college golfer and the best, the number one ranked amateur. But outside of that, the issue comes, they lost, they had the departures of Charlotte Heath and Alice Hope Hodge. They leave some gaps. The next highest ranked player are all freshmen. So they have a young team. Their first year was, they're adding in, freshmen, highlighted by England's Sophia Fulbrook. So for me, they have really good players in Lottie Woad and Mirabel Tang, but really, having a, roster of, all freshmen, highest ranked players are all freshmen outside of Lottie Woad and Mirabel Tang. There's going to be some question for them. I think they have potential, to make it to national championship and be a very good team this season. But for me, I just think that, you know, who's going to step up and who's going to be, really good players for Florida State outside of Lottie Wood and Mirabel Tang. At number 16, I have LSU. LSU was really just built last year to win it all. They lose, Ingrid Lindblad. They lose Latana Stone. They lose Carla Tejado. They have Annie Donegan and they have Rocio Tejado. But I mean, they just lost so much talent, and no one lost more talent than the LSU Tigers, losing Ingrid Lindblad and Latana Stone and Carla Tejado. So it's gonna be a lot that are gonna, they brought in, Carla's sister, Rocio Tejado. But for me, who's going to be really a great player outside of Donegan and Tejado for them? She's only a freshman, Tejado, and they're going to rely a lot on Annie Donegan. So there's a lot of question marks, and they lost a ton of talent for me. So that's why I have LSU at number 16. Number 17, I have Virginia. I really like, Amanda Sambach. She posted 5 top fives as a junior. She only played in the Palmer Cup and the U.S. Women's Amateur, where she lost in the round of 64 this summer. She spent several weeks, studying abroad in Spain, but I really like Amanda Sambach. She's one of the top, college golfers out there. The Cavaliers last year did get to look at Almi Lacosta, but they got, 20th place. So there's a lot to be desired for them. But I see a lot for Virginia this year. I really like Amanda Sambach. They have, senior Rebecca Scholar and Morgan Propek. They also have, Kennedy Swidick. They added her, and they got a transfer in Chloe Shivavone from Notre Dame. So I really like, the team that they have. Amanda Sambach's definitely, one of the top, 20 college golfers for them. And I really like, how their season is shaping up. They're starting in Japan. Then they have a preview at their home tournament, and so at their home course. So I really like Amanda Sambach. They have some senior, leadership, and they get to host a regional this year in May. So, we saw that with Auburn, how they were able to win their regional. So I think that it sets up really well for them. They have a very good team this year, and I think getting to host a regional at their home course will be really beneficial for the Cavaliers. So I definitely have them at 17. And a team to look out for is the Virginia Cavaliers this year. I think they can be a good team who can definitely get to Omni Lacosta and maybe, get into the final round of the national championship for stroke play. At number 18, I have Arizona. At number 19, I have Ole Miss. At 20, I have Duke. I just think that there's a lot to be answered. They do have Katie Lee and Andy Smith for Duke, but they lost, a lot of, key players, important players for them and a lot of talent. So a lot's going to fall on Katie Lee. They lost Phoebe Brinker, Ann Chen, and Emma McMyler. So, it's going to be a lot that's going to be, on, senior Riley Heflin and, junior Andy Smith and Katie Lee. Because, I've seen a lot of Duke players have left. I was at an Epson Tour tournament and I saw, Ann Chen playing there, and just so many different players. Erica Shepard was playing, and just so many different Duke players are there. They've lost a lot of talent over the years. They finished 14th at the national championship last year, but they lost a lot of leadership, a lot of talent. So players like Katie Lee, I definitely think she was a great play. She was a highly recruited player. She just got one top 10 as a freshman, but I see Katie, stepping up and, having a better sophomore season this year. But, losing a lot of talent is going to be tough for the Duke Blue Devils. And I have them at 20. At 21, I have Florida. At 22, I have Clemson. I think Clemson has a very good team. They have potential, they advanced to match play for the first time in program history last year, and that was, very great. But, they're going to have to replace Annabella Pancake and junior Chloe Holder. They're going to have to replace Annabella Pancake. They have junior Chloe Holder. They didn't play super well. They finished third at their home tournament, and, it's going to be a lot of question marks for them. Can they, ride the high of advancing to match play for the first time in program history last year? There's an injury to Isabella Roll, who I really like, but they didn't really impress me at their home tournament, and losing to teams like Campbell and Georgia, Southern, yes, they have injuries, and yes, certain things happen, but finishing third at their home course, at their home tournament to start out the season, left a lot of question marks. And who knows if the Tigers definitely have a good team. I like someone like Isabella Roll this year, and Chloe Holder, but losing Annabella Pancake is going to be tough for them to replace and overcome. And finishing third as a team at their home tournament, which I expected them to win. I thought they would win. Has me placed them at 22 when I thought I would place them a lot higher. At 23, we have Michigan State. At 24, Central Florida. And at 25, I have Georgia. I think Georgia's a team to look out for. Maybe that a lot of people aren't, putting on their top ones, but on their top, 25, 30. But, I have Georgia at 25. I really like the hiring of Erica Brennan and Dalton, Stevens as coaches. They added in Morgan Smith from Georgetown, Chantal Lachey from, Sacred Heart. And I just really like, adding in transfers, having a senior leader in, Kate Song. I really like, what Erica Brennan, is doing. They have, senior leadership. They have great transfers, adding in great players. And, Erica, we've seen last year, yes, she had Melanie Green, but she, had a lot of success for South Florida last year. And, she brings a lot to Georgia. So I, think that, yes, losing Katarina Dawn for Georgia is going to be a lot for them to overcome. But I think that, Georgia's definitely with a new, great coach, and Erica Brennan is going to be a team, maybe keep an eye on and look out for. To go into my players, number 1, I have Lottie Woad. At number 2, I have Maria Jose Marin. At number 3, I have Julia Lopez Ramirez. At number 4, I have Adela Cernousek. At number 5, I have Zoe Campos. At number 6, I have Catherine Park. Number 7, Anna Davis. Number 8, Kiara Romero. At number 9, Farah O'Keefe. Number 10, Paula Martin Sampedro. Number 11, who's my pick for freshman of the year, Jasmine Koo. Number 12, Andrea Revuelta. Number 13, Lauren Kim. Number 14, Louise Rydqvist. Number 15, Amanda Sambach. Number 16, Bailey Shoemaker. Number 17, Meja Ortengren. Number 18, Cayetana Fernandez. Number 19, Kelly Zhu. Number 20, Hannah Darling. Just some things to get into it. Number 2, I have Maria Jose Marin. I think she has to, she's going to be one of the best, college golfers. I was surprised that, Brantley had her at 12. I think that, she got to the semifinals of the U.S. Amateur. She overcame her knee injury. We've seen that that's all good. She finished second at the Carmel Cup individually. So I just see a lot of potential for her. She only lost by 1 stroke. Had a tough second round shooting 3 over, but I think she'll overcome that. And I see, the potential for her to be, at the top of leaderboards, this whole season. At number 1, I have Lottie Woad. She's obviously the best college golfer out there. And, we're going to see a lot of her, Florida State, we saw with Luke Clanton, the summer of Luke Clanton. And then on the women's side, we saw the summer of Lottie Woad. But I see a lot from her. Number 4, Adela Cernousek. I just don't, I didn't see a lot from her. She finished 6th at the Carmel Cup, and I just don't, she was the individual champion last year, but she really didn't super impress me with her finish at the Carmel Cup. I think that I can see why Brantley has her at number 2, but I just think that with her performance at the Carmel Cup, it's a lot that I have to see from her and see if she can repeat, her amazing season that she had last year. You know, at number 11, I have Jasmine Koo. I think she has, the potential to be, freshman of the year. I have her, and I just need to see, her play some college golf, get into, the groove and play with at USC before I'm able to, pick her for, freshman of the year. I think it's going to come down between Jasmine Koo and Andrea Revuelta to see who's going to be, that player who's going to get, you know, freshman of the year. So for me, I have my best player of the year. I think for me, it's going to be best player. I think for me right now, I'm going to pick my player of the year. Probably for me is going to be, I have to go with Lottie Woad. My freshman of the year, I'm going to give to Jasmine Koo. A player who people aren't talking about, but who I'm picking. I think I like Amanda Sambach, from Virginia. Really like what she's doing, at Virginia, and I really like, how their season's set up. Getting a host of regionals this year. I see a lot for Amanda Sambach, so a player who people aren't talking a lot about. I see a lot from her. I see a lot from Farah O'Keefe this year at Texas. I think that, there's going to be a lot from her. A player who's really going to step up this year, who I really like. I have at 20 right now, but I think I see a lot from her this year is Hannah Darling. I think she has a bounce back year. She's fired up, winning the Curtis Cup. I think that fired her up, and she's going to have a very good, comeback season. So I have, Hannah Darling as a player who's going to make a comeback this year. And another player who, is going to expect a lot, but we'll see how it goes. I'm interested to see, how does Paula Martin Sampedro, being a leader basically on, the Stanford team, how's she going to do this year? How is someone like Andrea Revuelta? I think the freshman of the year is going to come down between Jasmine Koo and Andrea Revuelta, but ultimately, I just think that Jasmine Koo has the experience of playing the Curtis Cup and, playing at USC, getting, a lot of playing time for the Trojans is going to, ultimately lead her to be freshman of the year. So for me, I have, the best college player right now, Lottie Woad. I think my freshman of the year going into the season is going to be Jasmine Koo. Player who people aren't talking about, but I think is going to have a very good season, Amanda Sambach. A player who's going to, have a bounce back season, I think is Hannah Darling. Player who people rank low, who I think is going to have a very good season, Maria Jose Marin, who I have at number 2. Team to look out for, who I don't think people are talking a lot about so far, I think is a team like, Mississippi State, Northwestern, or even you could go down to like someone like a Virginia or a Georgia. I think are teams who are, potential to be, a team who are people aren't talking about, but they have potential to be a very good team. I think a team who's going to have a letdown season is Clemson. We didn't really see a lot from them. I think Arizona State also only having 5 players is going to be a team who potentially could have a letdown this year. And I think Oregon also is a team who could have a letdown. But my national champions who I'm picking is Stanford. I mean, they just have a stacked team of 6 or 7 deep, and I think they have the potential to have a very good team. I also think that, UCLA has a very good team, and I also really like Arkansas going into this year. But as of right now, if I had to give, the edge to anyone, obviously it's Stanford. They're, very impressive. They're last year's national champions, and I think they are just a very good team who's, loaded from top to bottom. So my national champions going into the season is Stanford at number 1, and player of the year right now I have to give to Lottie Woad. Freshman of the year I have Jasmine Koo, beating Andrea Revuelta. Player to look out for I think is Amanda Sambach. Player who has a bounce back year I think is Hannah Darling, and teams to look out for I see Georgia, Virginia having a good year. Some teams who have a letdown I think are Oregon, LSU. Possibly Duke have a letdown season. Clemson probably have a letdown season for me. And, I really like, what like Arkansas is doing and UCLA is doing. But